Hi, this is Cheryl for Bear's Pampered Stampers. I'm back today with a video on decorating Folio 1. So in the last video, we put together the naked folio. And so here it is, Folio 1, all put together. This one's very, very simple, as you might recall from the first video, with a couple of interior pockets, no extra pages or anything like that. So it's pretty straightforward. And here are the pictures on the reverse side. You can see some of my scribblings about sizes and that sort of thing. But you can see roughly how they covered it with pattern paper. You have so many choices on this. This folio is 6x6. So you can go with any 6x6 paper pad. I just grabbed this one with the plaids. The nice part about 6x6 paper is it's going to be a good scale. Usually these are smaller prints and patterns, so don't look too out of place on a small folio like this. So look at the 6x6 papers. Also, hang on, let me set this Velcro aside so I don't lose it. These paper packs from Photoplay, Echo Park, and others are great to use because you get a variety of papers which you can mix and match on the inside. Plus, they usually have things like cut-apart cards. You can see those represented below that you can use in the pockets or to decorate fronts and backs and that sort of thing. And they typically have a sticker sheet. And sorry, I think I smacked my camera there and it went fluttering a bit. They have a sticker sheet like this one, so there's a wealth of stickers that you can use. Again, this is usually one of these paper packs is my go-to choice for a folio because there's just a wealth of stuff that goes together. You know that. You have the stickers, the cut-aparts, and it's all good. But because this is such a simple folio, I don't really need all the bells and whistles. So what caught my eye was an 8x8 Stamperia paper pad. It's called Love Story, and so it has a lot of cute pictures around couples, and then again you've got coordinating papers inside. You can see I've already cut it up a bit for the pieces that we'll use today. It's a good scale for a 6x6 album. This is only a little bit bigger. This maybe is a bit large. If I tried to put this on 6x6, probably all I'm going to fit, trying to get this in camera here, is this area here. And so that would be nice, but again, you know, maybe just a little bit bigger in scales. But I love the little pictures that were available, and so we'll look at some of those as we decorate. So the 8x8 by Stamperia is what I chose to use for this album. It has very small needs because there's not a lot to cover and decorate. And even so, I chose not to use the patterns in here in covering the album. We're going to use a solid color to do that today. So I just have a plain, lovely pink cardstock that we're going to use to cover it. And then we'll use the images from the Stamperia pad to decorate on the inside and add some things in the pockets and that sort of thing to make this a really functional album. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cover the front and back and the little spine area here. And I'm actually going to start with the spine. This is 6x6 square. The front and the back is. The spine is about 1/2 inch wide. So I need to bring it down a little bit because I want a little white margin, not a lot. This piece of paper that I have here to cover the spine is just about 3/8 of an inch wide, and it's 5 7/8 inches long. Now I'm using score tape to attach my paper. You can use lots of different things. We've got our structure done, so we don't have to worry so much about things coming apart anymore. So even a tape runner might work, but I like the idea of using score tape. I know when I put these papers down, they're not going to move on me. So again, I've got to place carefully because I know I don't get a second chance at this. We saw in the first video what happens when you have to pull it up and move it. So I'm just very carefully going to place this along the spine and set it down into place. Pretty straightforward. I've not covered my score line, so I still have that. I'm still able to move the book and everything without a problem. Here's one of my covers, and again, using the solid paper, it doesn't matter, front or back. 5 7/8 by 5 7/8, because again, my book is 6 by 6. I went ahead and put the score tape on ahead of time for the cover because I thought, yeah, people paw at it a little bit, you know, maybe you want a little more hold. I use the 1/4 inch score tape, but usually I just use an 1/8 inch if I'm going to use score tape on the books to do the decorative part of it, because you just don't need it to stick that hard. You're going to be careful when you place it. Pick one straight line or another to line up with, and just be brave and go for it. Try and get it centered. Again, you should have a little white border around. So there I've got my back cover on. I'm going to flip it over. Again, flip these things to make it easier to reach, as opposed to, you know, making yourself crazy trying to put it on with, you know, the covers in the exact right position and potentially messing things up. It doesn't matter. You can write it when you go do the inside. So here we go. Here's our second cover sheet ready to go. I'm going to find some straight lines to guide me here. And I'm going to set this down into place. So there we have it. The front and back covers are done. And we can move to the inside. And these again are 5 7/8 by 5 7/8. If you want more of a white border, make it just a little bit smaller. Always test your pieces out before you put them in. Now on the inside, I want to do essentially the same. I've got pockets that I have to deal with on both sides, and I have this inner spine. This is the same size as the outer, but because it's got all the pockets around and everything else, I actually want my strip to be a little bit smaller. So this one I stopped at 1/4 inch. So it's 5 7/8 by 1/4 inch. I'm using my 1/8 inch score tape on this because the 1/4 inch would be an exact match, and that would just kind of annoy me. It might be a little bigger actually than my paper strip, and that wouldn't be a good thing. So remove that liner. Again, set this carefully in place. Not as hard as it may look. You've got lines on either side here so you can line it up. I'm only using the 1/8 inch score tape at this point. So if I have to move it a little bit, I can usually do that with ease, because the 1/8 inch just doesn't have that same adhering power as the 1/4 inch. So we've got that done. We're going to work on the left pockets first. I'm going to start at the bottom. And for this one, and pardon me, I'm going to refer to my measurements so I tell you right. My bottom pocket is 1 7/8 inches tall and 5 7/8 wide. And you'll have to look at this and measure it against your folio, because sometimes you have to trim it just a little bit more, particularly on the 5 7/8 side. It's just about the folds and how they go in, and you're talking about such small measurements that it's possible there'll be some deviation. So don't stress about it too much. Just check it out before you go to adhere it down and find out it's too big or too small or what have you. So again, I'm sticking with my 1/8 inch score tape. I think this is more than enough. I am going to stick down all 4 sides on this lower pocket. I'm going to look for my straight sides and then go ahead and adhere it down. And so we've got that bottom pocket covered. Now when I move up to the middle here, I measured 5 7/8 again, and the height I'm using 2 7/8. When I put my score tape on this, I really only need adhesive on 3 sides, the top and the 2 edges, because the bottom is just going to tuck in the pocket, just like this. But just as you're seeing me do here, you want to test it a little bit and make sure it's going to fit. If you have to, do a little bit of trim at the very bottom on your cardstock. Looks like I tried to maybe miss the mark a little bit, but let's go ahead and do this for about a 1/2 inch up. About a 1/2 inch is what I've overlapped down into that pocket. I don't have to go all the way to the bottom. I just have to have enough to tuck in. And there we go. So for this one, I'm going to rotate the book again just to make it easier to place my cardstock. So again, no adhesive on the bottom. That saves you from getting stuck. I'm going to go ahead and remove these liners. Now when I slide it in, what I'm most worried about lining up is this top area. Sorry, I'm still trying to get the right angle. So you do what's good for you. I'm trying to get myself just a little bit of a showing edge there at the top of the white. Sorry, I don't quite have it, so I'm going to pick it up. This is why I use the 1/8 inch. It's much easier to pick up from the inside if you need to than the 1/4 inch. But yet it's going to stick and it's going to hold everything in place. So here we go again. Stuffing this down into the pocket. And we've got the second one in place. And so you can see how nice that white edge shows the pockets there. Here's our top piece. Our top piece is 2 3/8 by 5 7/8. And again, I'm going to test it in this pocket first and make sure it slides in. It seems as though I need to do just a little trimming on this one too. It's not going in so easy. Funny how it did earlier, but it's just not now. So we're going to take it out. We're going to trim a little bit at the bottom. Again, only for about 1/2 inch, because that's about the overlap into the pocket. Test it again. If you end up cutting too much of your score tape off, then go ahead and place another piece at the bottom, because you do want it to adhere and not get in the way later. Okay, so that's how it fits. Again, I'm going to shift things around just a little bit to make it easier for me, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere that into place. Now, of course, if you'd chosen to work with pattern paper, you could be using 3 or 4 different ones here. Just a lot of fun. It doesn't take a lot of paper. It's really a very small book. So probably 2 sheets of 12 by 12 would be enough to get you through. Maybe 3 of 8.5 by 11, just because you can't do more than 1 6 by 6 cut out of an 8.5 by 11, but you can use the leftover sheets a lot. So there we go, and the left side of the book is done. Let's shift to the right. On the right side, we've got a large area here at the top, 2 sides of the flap. the bottom pocket, and then just this little area here. So we're going to start at the top actually on this one. It doesn't matter where you start, so start where you're comfortable. Remember that our pockets on this side are gusseted, so we have more space to work with. Trimming should be less of a problem for this, but we're going to check anyway and make sure everything fits into place. And so this looks good for the top. I can go ahead and remove my score tape and then slide that into its permanent place. And there we go. We've got the top in place. Here's one of my flat pieces. The flat pieces I cut. This again, this top part was cut at 5 7/8 by 3.5 high. The flaps, you need 2 of them. They're going to be 2 1/8 inch high and 5 7/8 inches wide. You will want to put tape on, score tape or adhesive on all 4 sides of the flap, just because it is exposed. There's no pocket to stick it in or anything like that. So we'll go ahead and nail that down, keep it in place. The flap's pretty easy, just lay it down. Try and keep the same. We got just a little bit over to the left too far. So I'm just going to move it slightly and then go ahead and tack it down. I want to have those white edges because I like the look of it. You can go a little bit larger if you don't want to see the white edges. I'm going to do the same thing for an inner flap. Again, the measurement is 2 1/8 by 5 7/8. For all these measurements, check your own book. Make sure you have the same result. Folding could change things. There could be a tiny little cut difference between your Photoplay folio and mine. So check yours. Make sure yours is accurate. But they'll be somewhere around these measurements. A good ruler is what you need to get yourself through. So again, we're just going to lay this in place, leave those little margins. Now, because of the gusset, you have a fairly big divide here. I'm not going to worry about that. It's just the way it goes. I have a tiny piece here. This is 3/4 of an inch by 5 7/8 that I'm going to drop into that pocket to keep the pink going. It's kind of a long space to leave just plain white. So I've got my adhesive removed and I'm just going to drop this into place. Again, I have to slide it into the pocket and get it below that bottom score line there. Not too difficult, just take your time and make sure you have good lighting. But there's our liner. Kind of looks like there's pink underneath there, and it's really just only 3/4 of an inch. That's between you and me. We won't tell anybody else. And then our final piece at the bottom, I measured at 2 7/8 by 5 7/8. And so I went ahead and put my score tape on, again, all 4 sides, because all 4 sides are open, you know, up top and exposed. I don't have any pockets for tucking here. I'm going to go ahead and remove the score tape. Again, I think you'd be fine if you use tape runner. I just prefer score tape because I like things to stay and to last really well. And, well, depending on your tape runner, sometimes maybe they don't last as well. But you use what you're comfortable with, I guess, is the main point there. So here we're going to go ahead and center this, give a little bit of white space, and we are good to go with this part of the folio. So everything still works and functions, and now my naked folio has turned pink, and we're ready to start decorating. Now I went ahead and cut some pieces out of, and we'll deal with this closure strap here in just a minute. I cut some pieces out of the paper pad Love Story by Stamperia. It's so pretty on both sides that is just kind of fun to use. Different sizes and shapes in the pockets. Whoever is decorating this album can go ahead and put in whatever items they want to. Use the paper to mount photos and that sort of thing. So I'm just adding some different pieces here. I kind of put the ones I liked better toward the front, the ones I liked a little bit less or more toward the back, and that's just the way I do things. So it's all good. Actually, I like those flowers, so I want to leave those up front. But you have plenty of paper that you can use on either side in decorating and that sort of thing. I kept 2 images that I liked for my front and back cover, so I have those set aside. I don't know exactly what that's getting caught on because there's nothing there to catch it, but yet here we are. There we go, because I cut that piece of paper really close to the right size. And another one here, you want to put some fairly large pieces or even just some plain A2 cards in there or something like that so that there's something for somebody to decorate here. Otherwise, the folio itself just doesn't have a lot of decoratable space. Some cute wedding stickers I think would help you finish out too. Or there's lots of images in this paper pad. For example, these little guys, I'm going to cut some of these off and put in these areas and on the flaps. It's just kind of hard to make those decisions until the folio's fully assembled, and well, you just saw me do that. So I will have changes by the time you see it in the shop, but this is what I've got going on now. I chose this image for the front cover, and I think there's plenty of name for bride and groom's names and dates and that sort of thing, and this image for the back cover. So those will be mounted, but first we want to do the closure strap, which, if you recall, looks kind of like this. If you remember, we folded along the first and the last score lines. We had a pretty decent fold, and the rest of them we just kind of gently folded, so there was a curve to it as opposed to having a real accordion pleat or something like that. Now, what I want to do at this point is to cover this with the pink paper as well so that it matches a little bit. I left the same borders and that sort of thing, or at least I tried to if my measurements are good. So what I did was I scored it, and the easiest way, oops, I've got that upside down. The easiest way to score it is to line your pink paper or whatever paper you're covering it up with the paper below, and just mark where those score lines are, the first one and the last one, and then go ahead and score on those 2 lines. Now you're going to need that ×2 because you've got a front and a back. Just remember, one folds this way and the other folds in. Okay. What I want to do is to put them in place on the white only I want to attach the end tabs, but not the center. Before I attach it, I want to take my fingers and just gently curl that center, because I want it to curl in the same way this kind of accordion pleated part does. I'm going to go ahead and remove my score tape from the two ends. Actually, I'm going to do one end at a time. And put that in place on the white. And my score line should match up. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove the score tape at the other end. And I'm going to put this end into place. You want to match it up as best you can, score line to score line, and end to end. So what you have now is a piece that does this. So we're going to flip it and do the other side. If you remember, when I originally started out, I put the score tape on because I was going to attach it right to the book. I didn't get that done, so it's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and expose the score tape now. We'll adhere it to the pink paper, and it'll just be way over adhered, but that's okay. Because this will still be the part that attaches to our book. You won't know the difference, essentially. So on my pink side, I'm going to go ahead and remove this score tape, which I didn't need to put on. I had plenty on the white. I forgot. Sorry, guys. And line that up. Looks like I might have a little extra adhesive down at this end, but it's all right. This eventually will attach to my book, and that all gets fixed. So don't worry about the silly little stuff. Worry about big stuff. And then I'll go ahead and remove the score tape at the other end and put this into place. And there you have it. I've got my book closure. And it should work about the same way as it was going to in the first place. Again, I'm going to continue to just sort of gently curve there in that center. I can fold these lines again, and it should all be good. So this short end will attach at the back of the book. And then this end can come in. And why did they have such, I'm not quite sure why they have such a large panel in between here, because it doesn't appear like we really need it at all. But okay, it's there. So I may go ahead and refold that a little bit to something that seems more appropriate to the book size. Because I don't want to have my book standing open 4 feet when it's not going to, you know. That's just crazy to me. So here we go. That gives us a fair amount of expansion for the book. And it's all good. I'm going to put score tape only on this original small square to adhere it to the book now. And again, I want to use... For this part, I want to use score tape because I need this to stick, and to stick very well. And you saw when I was putting the pink on how much score tape I actually had in place. I want that much again, because this one, I don't want... The closure part kind of bears a lot of stress, so you want to make sure it stays where it needs to stay. So 4 pieces of score tape doesn't seem excessive when you think about the job that it has to do even though it's a small piece. And I use a lot of score tape. I think I should have stock in the company, but it's all good. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and trim those ends a little bit that are a little bit long. I could have also just exposed the score tape and folded them back, but, you know, 6 of one, half dozen of another. Yeah, I'm going to check my book and make sure I've got it right side, you know, like it's supposed to be. It would be not unusual for me to put something on the front cover that belonged on the back. Let me put it that way. So I'm going to move it in just about a ½ inch and center it there. You can place this wherever you feel is the appropriate place to go. It just has to be on the back side and carry over to the front. And so that part's done. It's very secure. It's not going to come loose. I can bend this over to the front now, and I'm in good shape. Remember, my cardstock, the original folio is still under there and it's folded, so I have plenty of fold lines that I can use to bring this into the right location for my folio. I think what I'm going to do is cut a piece of pink cardstock to go behind this and then mount this picture on the closure flap. It's kind of too big to put on. It would have to go underneath. I don't think I like that idea so well. I think I'd rather see it go on the closure, and that will, you know, sort of do something to reinforce this. I'm worried about this paper alone because it's a little bit flimsy. I need the cardstock. So that's how that will go. Just right on there, and then you'll open and close this way. What I want to add, though, is something to keep the book closed, and what I'm going to do is to use some Velcro. Melissa has some perfect Velcro in the store. I don't know what I did with mine, so I'm just going to use some regular Velcro that I have that's self-adhesive, but you need the two sides. You don't have to have this big old loop. There's hers is much smaller and will hold it just as well. The other option is to use magnets. She also sells magnets that work. The problem with magnets is that when you put a layer of two of cardstock in between, all of a sudden it's just a little bit harder to get those magnets to get close enough to adhere. They're strong, but not super strong, if you know what I'm saying there. So again, use what makes sense to you. What I do with the Velcro is I put the two sides together, and then I go ahead and expose one side of the adhesive, and I can put that on my flap side here. Again, I try not to go at the exact edge of anything. I just think that makes things easier. And I check my book and see how that looks. Everything looks fine. I'm going to just do some refolding here for a minute. There's so much going on the right side that sometimes the fold doesn't stay as crisp as I want it to, and it tends to, the left side kind of slouches in a little bit. So I'm just going to push everything over. I'm going to go ahead and remove the, you can't see this because I'm off camera, remove the liner from the adhesive bit, or from the Velcro here. And then I can go ahead and close the cover. I want to pull this over reasonably, but I don't want it tight, just because I want to leave room for expansion. When I get photos and everything else in this folio, it's going to be thicker than it is right now, and I want to accommodate that. So my Velcro's attached. I gave it a good push, and now I can open and close it with no problem. I can look for ways to disguise or decorate the Velcro, but I personally am not offended by it. Again, I'm going to cut a piece of pink cardstock, put it behind this image, and that's going to be my cover. I probably want to add a little ribbon or something because that's what I do, some fun embellishments, but you have lots of choices. Get a cute sticker pack, something like that. You can add names and dates, a lot of places around here. For my back cover, again, I want to use this image, so I just have to figure out how that fits in best. Looks like I've got closure problems again that I have to work around, but that's not that big of a deal. I can find ways to disguise this and make this work. So that's part of what you're doing here, is just finding ways to make the folio work for you. You can see in the picture that at Photoplay they used a button and a loop closure for their folio. There's a lot of choices that you can use. So we saw this is very long on the front side and extends all the way over here. So it wouldn't be hard to do a loop and a button that would close that. Again, they used pattern paper to decorate, so you can see how they mixed and matched the pattern paper. But you want to have a lot of fun cards and other things cut to stick in the pockets to let people do what they want with the folio. It's gonna hold a lot. You have the nice flat pockets over here, 2 of them, a deeper one and a shallower one. And then you have 2 gusseted pockets here that will hold a lot. The deep pocket, that's that full 6 inches high. And then this shallower pocket with the flap over top, that will keep things in place. Again, remember, you can add pictures here and here and here. There's lots of places that you can add photos and mementos and everything else. So this is just a really fun little versatile album. Be sure and stop by the shop and see the completed album in person. It will be there along with some of the others as I get those done, and you can choose what makes sense for you as you put together a cute little photo album for someone to commemorate weddings and family events and all sorts of things. So thanks so much for watching today.